Hey, welcome to Flight Test. I'm Josh.
And I'm Adam.
And today we're going to be showing you how to build the FT Sparrow free flight version. Now, the FT Sparrow was released at the AMA Expo, and we learned a great deal during the family make and take. One thing we really wanted to do with this was to have people build together, fly together, and learn together. This plane is designed to be able to teach everyone every skill needed to build all of our 30 and growing designs that we have, and also be built in under about 45 minutes.
One of the best parts about building this plane is you do not need no knives.
That's right. We're going to be using things like markers and gift cards in placement of knives to be able to get our creases and our score cuts. One neat thing about the Sparrow design is it not only makes a good chuck glider, but it also makes an exceptional RC 3-channel aircraft. Stick around for the end of the build because we're going to show you how to convert a chuck glider into an RC version at the very end. So let's go ahead and get our materials in order. If you're watching this video, not only are the bulk kits, the speed build kits available for schools and for groups, but they're also the free plans that are downloadable right now. Let's go ahead and get our materials in order and we'll get started. In this portion of the build, we're going to be showing you how to build the wing of the FT Sparrow Free Flight. So Adam, the first step that we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and punch out the pieces of the wings. Now there's only 3 pieces to our wing. It's going to be the main pieces and these 2 spars here and here. Why don't you go ahead and pop out the wings and I'll pop out the spars. Alright, let's go ahead and put these extra pieces to the side. And so this is your wing. You got 2 main spars and then you got your main piece of the wing. Before we go ahead and put our attention towards the wing, let's go ahead and fold these over and crack it on the score cut, and we're going to glue it in half. Now we already have our glue gun all heated up. I'm going to go ahead and put a bead down and then you go ahead and do the same, okay? You're really good at that glue gun. Go ahead and show the camera there what it should look like. Alright, about 30 seconds later, it's nice and strong, isn't it? So our next step is, now that we have this all folded and the glue is dried, you're going to have the folded edge and the sharper edge here. We're going to work on this folded smooth edge, and we're going to glue it down flush with the back part of the bottom surface of the wing. Just like that. Yep, so it's always a smart idea to go ahead and put it on the smaller piece that you're gluing. That way you don't waste any glue going outside the lines. So why don't you go ahead and put your glue down, and then go ahead and stick it on there. Perfect. Now I'm going to go ahead and go right next to you here and do the exact same thing. We're going to go ahead and need to make this cavity a little bit bigger so the wing will fold over nicely. Now normally we use razor blades, but we're not going to do it this time, are we? What are we going to use?
A marker.
A marker, that's right. Why don't you go over there and grab that orange Sharpie marker. We're going to have a video linked down below, but you can actually build all of our speed build kits without the use of a razor blade by using things like sanding blocks, markers, or a door key or a gift card. What we're going to do on the center area, rather than doing a double bevel cut, is we're going to drag this marker here on the smooth tip right down through the center. And we're not going to do it once, but we're going to do it about 4 or 5 times. Don't try to do it in one swipe or you're going to rip the paper. Just like that. Now it's time to fold over, isn't it? You want to give me a hand with that? So we're not going to try to do it in one motion. We're just going to rock it back and forth slowly. Just like that. Perfect. Excellent. Just at the point where it touches and nothing's bending is right where we want it. Our next step to prepare the wing is we're going to go ahead and establish folds along each one of these score cuts. And the way we're going to do that, go ahead and grab the other side, Adam, is we're going to slowly rock this in and kind of work our fingers up towards the edge there. There you go. And if you have to, you can use 2 hands and kind of push in there. Once we have that kind of creased over, let's go ahead and do a practice fold. Ready? Beautiful. What we want to see is this 3rd fold. So we have 1, 2, 3 folds here. We want this to be parallel with the bottom surface of the wing so it glues nice and strong to the other surface. Now we're going to be throwing this a lot into probably walls and different areas. We want to make this wing strong, don't we? How are we going to do that?
Probably use the glue in the center.
Yeah, we're going to use the glue in the seams. So these seams here that are currently folded over, we're going to go ahead and apply a little bit of glue. Why don't you hand me that glue gun real quick? And we're not going to put any glue in this seam yet. Now one thing I want to encourage you guys, if you don't have a big enough glue gun that can handle the glue quick enough, just go ahead and do 1 seam at a time and then fold over 1 at a time and let it dry. You don't need to do as many steps if your glue gun can't handle it. So I'm going to take the nozzle of the glue gun, I'm going to push it right down in here, and I'm going to lightly press and just put a really thin bead of glue right along the seam of the wing. It doesn't have to be too big. I'm going to go ahead and do it on the next one. Okay, So Adam, let's go ahead and grab this, and we're just going to hold this over just a little bit. Not press it all the way down to make it glue into the wing yet, but just enough to hold the form. We're going to give it about 20 seconds, and when we release it, it's going to hold this shape now for us. Look at that. So now, our wing shape is holding. Our next step that we're going to do is we're going to place some glue right down on here. Will you do that for me? Good job. All right, let's go ahead and fold that wing over. How long are we going to hold it down for?
20 seconds, about 20 seconds.
About 20, 30 seconds. You got it. All right, you think about 20 seconds is up? Mm-hmm. All right, let's go ahead and see if it holds. Good work. This wing, we haven't put any glue here. And see how this is, the rear spar and the rear surface of the wing only goes halfway back? Mm-hmm. We need to make this back surface very strong and hold its form. We're going to go ahead and crack this, and we're going to put a bead of glue right down this groove all the way down. So that way when we fold it over, it's nice and strong and holds its form really well. Okay? So go ahead and give me a nice bead of glue all the way down there. You always want to make sure that you have plenty of glue in your glue gun and have an extra glue stick by your side whenever you need it. Beautiful. All right. Let's go ahead and fold that down. And we're going to put all our attention on this trailing edge. Make sure that trailing edge is nice and flat. Now when you push against your wing, you don't need to push down real hard. All you need to do is have nice even pressure. So Adam, we now have our airfoil established. We know we're going to generate lift, but what do we think we have to do next?
Dihedral.
Dihedral.
It helps the plane be a little bit more stable.
That's absolutely right. So we have this little gauge here, and that gauge is in our kit. And we're going to go ahead and use that gauge on the very back fold here to give us the proper amount of dihedral. All right? So we're going to go ahead and squirt some glue right down in the center area. We're going to fold it up. And on this very back seam, I need you to go ahead and put that dihedral gauge in there for me. So I'll grab that glue gun. We're going to put that nozzle right down in that cavity. And we're going to put a nice, healthy bead of glue right into that seam. We're going to go back with tape later on and reinforce this. So it doesn't have to be perfect. All right, I'll hold down this edge. Perfect. And with the scrap piece of foam that we have, we're going to go ahead and scrape that excess nice and smooth. More glue doesn't always mean more strength, does it? Mm-mm. All right, now this here is a lot more glue than normal, so we're going to give this a little bit more time. A couple things you can do. If you don't want to sit here and hold it, you can take something heavier like a sandbag or a weight, and you can just put it right down. Hold it in place. So give this probably about 2 or 3 minutes to dry. All right, our time is up. Let's go ahead and take off the weight and go ahead and pull out your end. And that's perfect. You see when you remove that, how the wing didn't drop? Mm-hmm. That means that you let it dry plenty long. If it starts to drop and kind of pull apart here, put that gauge back in there. Now, this is strong, but how do we make it stronger?
Tape.
Tape. Go ahead and pull me a strip of tape. Perfect. Nice. All right, so we're going to take this tape. We're going to lay it right over the center. We're going to have a little bit extra on each side. That's okay. And go ahead and rub that down. This extra length on each side, we can just flip that over.
Fold it in.
And fold it in. You got it. There we go. There's a couple wrinkles we don't need to worry about, do we? Mm-mm. One thing we can kind of point out at the bottom here is I put a little bit too much glue in here, didn't I? We can fix that pretty easily. Let's go ahead and just fleck off this glue and remove it. Extra glue means extra weight. There we go. Now, at this point our wing is done. In this portion of the build, we're going to be building our fuselage, curling our nose, and installing the rear dorsal fin. So to start the fuselage, let's go ahead and pop out the pieces we need. We're going to need our 2 nose doublers and our main fuselage piece here. Let's go ahead and pop those out, Adam. Now normally we use razor blades, don't we? Mm-hmm. We're not going to do it this time. What are we going to use?
A gift card.
A gift card. We have a gift card over there. It's a good idea to save gift cards. They work really good for this step, but also they're really good for reinforcements on future designs. Why don't you go ahead and put the edge of that gift card and then drag that through right along that score line. Wonderful. Go ahead and do it on this other side and then repeat the same process on the opposite side. Out of the last 2 steps, go ahead and do the same process on that area right here. Fantastic. Now that we've taken that score cut and we've taken all the way the paper, we're going to go ahead and fold this over 180 degrees. And we're going to use our fingernail and just slightly pull this away and remove the excess foam. Take your time doing this. Try to get the foam off in one solid sheet. If it doesn't remove in one clean piece and you have a little bit of stragglers, like you see here, you can easily go back and pull it off with your fingernail. The most important thing is you want to keep this lower portion of the paper intact. let's go ahead and remove the rest of this foam. So the last one's going to be here. Why don't you go ahead and remove that portion right here, Adam? There you go, just roll it right off. Excellent. So now that we have those cavities relieved, we're going to go ahead and remove some paper on the foam board. We're going to remove it from here and here. So just by taking the edge of your fingernail and lightly pulling up, you're going to notice that this is score cut here and here. So as you pull the paper up, it's going to pop off. Why don't you go ahead and do that one? Fantastic. Now that we have these cavities cleared out and the paper peeled from both these sides, our next step is to glue in our nose doublers. Now the nose doublers are going to make it even easier for the foam to wrap around, but it's also going to make the nose very strong. And when we're throwing a free flight glider, it's going to be bumping into a lot of different things. So go ahead and put some glue, just like I'm going to do here, on your side of the doubler. And then we're going to line it up with these etch marks right here. And place it down. Take your time and do your best to make sure no glue squeezes out. If it does squeeze out, you can go back with a little piece of scrap foam and scrape it off. So at this point of the build, we're going to go ahead and do our first B-fold. Now with flight tests, all of our designs work on very common techniques. A-fold, B-fold, C-fold, and also things like folding over the foam. What the B-fold is where the side plates, which are these and these, fold besides, so B for besides, the bottom plate. When you talk about A-fold and B-fold, it's always the orientation of the bottom or the top plate. So in this case, B, besides, and we have a little etched in diagram here. So what you want to do is make sure that that cross cut looks just like that diagram. So in this case, we're going to keep this surface on the table, and we're going to fold this up 90 degrees. So since it's folded up 90 degrees, our glue surface is going to be right here. So with glue on the side of the fuselage, Adam, what I need you to do is I need you to put a bead of glue only from here to here. Stop just a little bit short on both sides. Just a little bit closer. Like start about ½ inch in and end that ½ inch short. Perfect. And we're going to stop just short of that other line. That way when the glue spreads out, it doesn't make a mess and come over to this area. So let's go ahead and fold this up to 90 degrees. You can hold it there. And it's a good idea to always keep a triangle handy, or even a roll of tape, and then hold it at 90 degrees. If you check for 90 every time you need it, your plane's going to build even nicer and look even straighter. Alright, let's go ahead and release. See what happens. Perfect. Why don't you go ahead and do the other side here. Nice work. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and fold that up for me. And we're going to push against the table. Once again, we're going to say the table is our friend. We got to make sure that the whole surface is nice and flat. Go ahead and grab that triangle. How do we look?
Perfect.
Great. Always practice fold and test fold, and then reconfirm by looking at the little etch diagram to make sure you have the right fold, because this is a very strong joint, and once it's glued, it's very difficult to separate. Now that the sides are glued up, let's go ahead and put our attention towards the back. Let's go ahead and flip this over. Why don't you go ahead and fold that over 180 degrees. Perfect. Now that this is folded 180 degrees, we're going to go ahead and put a bead of glue here, here, and a little bit back right here.
Okay.
Can you do that for me? Perfect. Adam's putting just the right amount of glue down on here. You don't want to put too much, and if you put too little, it won't be strong. If you look at the tip of your nozzle and the hole there, that's about the diameter that you want. It will drop right there. Perfect. So let's go ahead and fold this over 180 degrees. And we're going to press this down in, and just what you did is perfect. And let's go ahead and fold it against the table. Once again, the table's our friend, and we're going to press this against the table here. And since this is 90 and this is 90, as long as we don't bend it too much, it's going to be nice and square. The biggest thing is we want to make sure these two portions here and here are pushed up against the surface of the foam. So Adam, our next step is to do a C-fold, and a C-fold is where this folds completely over and glues right on the top surface. So go ahead and give me a little bit of glue here and a little bit of glue on that paper. Perfect. Alright, let's go ahead and fold this over. Now I'm going to be touching the foam, not the paper, because the paper is going to be very, very hot. Do you remember that step that we just did a couple seconds ago? Mm-hmm. We're going to go ahead and do a similar step on the very front, but we're not going to glue all the way around. What we're going to do is we're going to flip this upside down, we're going to fold this open, and we're going to put our glue on the surface right up to the nose on both sides, here and here. Okay? Now And we want to put a decent amount of glue here because we want this to be very strong. So go ahead and give me a nice healthy glue here and here. Great. And then drag a bead of glue here and here. And it's a good idea, take your nozzle from this point to this point. You're going to see when you're pulling it away from the glue you just laid down, it lays down a little bit smoother and doesn't puddle up. Perfect. So now we're going to take our nose, we're going to hold this against the table, and we're going to pull this up. We're going to pull it perpendicular to the table, just like that. Alright, do you want to see if we let go what happens?
Yes.
Oh, you're a pro. Look at that. Alright, so this is going to be our hatch, isn't it? And we don't want to glue our hatch down, do we? So what we're going to do is there's a score cut right here. We're going to crack this open just like this. And Adam, the exact same process you did before, we're going to do again, except this time we're only going to go back enough to where the hatch meets just right here, okay?
So it's still open and close.
Exactly. So go ahead and from this point about 1 inch to the tip, let's repeat the exact same process as we did before. It's better to be a little bit closer to the nose. Perfect, right there. Nice.
On top.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. Same process as before as we did on the bottom. We're going to fold this over. And notice I'm keeping this hatch open. You know why?
So the glue won't keep it shut, hard to open and close.
That's right. And we don't want to have to scrape glue globs off of the paper, so we're going to give it about 1 minute's time. Let's go ahead and release this. And that's what we want to see. If it pops up a little bit, take the tip of your glue gun and just squirt a little bit more glue under each side and hold it back down until it doesn't release. Now that we have this like this, we have a little bit of a curve here, but we don't on this hatch, do we? So let's go ahead and just take our thumbs and kind of give it a nice gentle curve in. That's why we removed the paper from it, so it holds a curve but it doesn't crinkle on this side. And now when we press that in, we'll have a nice friction fit and our hatch will stay closed. Now to make the front of the nose a little bit tougher, we're going to go ahead and reinforce this paper so it doesn't peel off as easy as we did on the one side. We're also going to go ahead and smear a little bit of glue on all these surfaces here. Why don't you go ahead and give me a very, very thin bead on these areas. And since we're done with our little wing gauge, I'm going to use those areas to scrape that off and scrape off the excess glue. Just leaving what we need to reinforce the front nose. A real thin little bead. Perfect. And then here. And then the exact same process on the other side. I'll tilt that for you. I can definitely tell you've done this before. Alright, let's go ahead and do this section first. Just scrape that extra glue right off. Don't use your fingers because you'll burn your fingers if you do. If any of it slides anywhere else, just scrape it off. Alright, you've done that section. Go ahead and give me a thin bead of glue right where the paper meets the foam. One more on that side. Good work. I'm going to use a clean edge. Scrape that off. We also use this technique when we build radio controlled versions to reinforce the hinge lines, don't we?
So the paper won't fill off.
Yep. Makes the plane last a lot longer. Now that the nose is done, we're going to put our attention to the bottom of the back of the fuselage. So Adam, why don't you go ahead and just take this and pop out these two little tabs here. Now you guys may have done this when you popped out the pieces, and that's just fine. There you go. Perfect. Now this little skid here is going to go on the very back. The skid's going to do a couple different things. It's going to give it reinforcement to give a nice strong back so when it glides on the ground it rubs against this as well. But also it's going to help us with our vertical tracking. So Adam, on these low portions here, here, and here, why don't you give me a little bit of glue? Perfect. Now we're going to go ahead and press this in. And we're going to make sure the back of this is nice and flush. And also check it for 90 degrees. We don't really need to hold this down, do we? Just let it dry.
Gravity to do the help.
That's right. So Adam, while this is drying, why don't you go ahead and pop out our little thrower hole here. Now, because in some cases we're going to use this to throw, I don't really want to get a paper cut. Let's go ahead and just take this marker and kind of flatten this out a little bit, make it softer, right? That way when you put your finger in here, it's not sharp. In this portion of the build, we're going to assemble our tail, glue it onto the fuselage, install our barbecue skewers, and attach our wing. So the final 3 pieces in our kit are these 3 pieces here, aren't they? Mm-hmm. And what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to join these 2 tail sections together because we're going to make it a V-tail. To do that, we're going to join these together, and we're going to line up the tip and the back. Why don't you go ahead and get me some tape? I'll go ahead and hold this down. You go ahead and tape those together. It's not too hard, especially with perforated tape. Just peel off the excess that we don't need. Now this is taped together, we're going to flip it over. And Adam, just like we did on our wing, we're going to need to crush the center edge, aren't we? Mm-hmm. Why don't you go ahead and do that with that marker? Go about 3 or 4 times over. Just press it a little harder. Perfect. That's fantastic. Now, we have this little triangle in our kit, and this doesn't actually get glued to the plane, but this is a gauge just like we used on our wing. This triangle, we're going to be using the edge right here. We're not going to be using this edge here. So, let's go ahead and do a practice fold. We're going to lay this up, and we're going to press this in right here. If you got to work really hard to get this angle, go back and crush it a little bit more. Mm-hmm. But that feels pretty good. So I'm going to go ahead and put a bead of glue down, and then you go ahead and fold it up and put this up against the surface of the...
This side?
Yep. I'm going to put a decent healthy bead of glue down. Alright, fold it up. And press it all the way in there. And while Adam's holding that in place, I'm going to go ahead and take the scrap piece of foam. I'm going to go to a clean side. I'm going to scrape off the excess. Just like with the wing and everything else, don't go ahead and let this go after 30 seconds. Give it about 2 to 3 minutes to dry. Alright, our 3 minutes are up. Go ahead and pull that away. And you can see it didn't move an inch. That means everything is thoroughly dry and we're ready for our next step. And our next step is to install it on the back of the fuselage. Now this is going to fit down. There's 4 etch marks here, 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 and here. And that's going to help us use a reference so when we install it into the fuselage to keep them all equal distance. But you can see there's a big gap there, isn't there? Mm-hmm. What we want to do is we want to make this meet it nice and flush because the more surface area that touches it, the stronger it's going to be. So Adam, an easy way to get that angle is to lay it right on the edge of the table. And then go ahead and take your marker and then rub it back and forth. Don't do this with your finger because you don't want to get a paper cut. Go ahead and get it more of a 45-degree angle. Drop that back in. Perfect. Right there. And then we'll repeat the process on the other side. So now that you can see after crushing that down to an angle, when we set the tail in, the gap is a lot tighter and there's a lot more glue surface, which is going to make the glider a lot stronger. We can now use our reference guides here, here, and on the other side to put our glue down and then place that tail right back in its position. Ready to do that? Mm-hmm. So we're going to carefully put a bead of glue right on this edge here. We can always go back and reinforce it afterwards, so if you miss a little bit, don't worry about that. Alright, so go ahead and lay that on there. We'll go ahead and angle that for the camera. And then Adam, look under here. Do you see those little guides, those little marks? We're going to make sure they're equal distance from the side of the fuselage, but also on both sides. And that looks fantastic. And I want to make sure that you press down firmly and keep this crack right in the center and the reference lines all even. We're going to give this about a minute to dry. Now that our tail is dry and glued on, our last step in this assembly is to put the skewer right through each hole on both the front and the back. Now, instead of just poking it through one side down to the other, we're only going to start and go through one portion, and I'm going to use a little twisting motion. Once it passes through, we'll do it on the other side. Notice I'm keeping my fingers away, I'm not holding it like this. Now on the tail, when we do it, it's going to want to bend down, but we want to go through this tail portion too. So we're going to do a nice twisting motion, keep it nice and perpendicular to the foam board. And the same process on the other side. So while we're here, we're ready to go ahead and install this. We'll go ahead and leave this partially through. And in our kit, we have rubber bands. Let's go ahead and lay these rubber bands down and pass it through the other side. Now we don't need any real excess out on the other side, so we can really just take it just about to the edge, just enough so we can pull it out if we need to.
About a centimeter.
About a centimeter, yep. Let's go ahead and mark this on the other side with our fingernail. pull it all the way out. Now we'll just go and wiggle it back and forth until it cracks. Then we'll go ahead and reinstall it once again with the rubber bands, just how we did the first time. Adam, do you want to pass the skewer through the front?
Mm-hmm.
Adam's making sure he's keeping his fingers away from the hole. In this case, about the width of your thumb is what we want to leave because the rubber bands are going to go to the outside. So go ahead and pass it through. Right about there is perfect. A little bit longer. Perfect. And then go ahead and you can actually kind of break this off on this one. Let's put our nail down. We'll wiggle it back and forth. Now that our rubber bands and our barbecue skewers are installed, let's go ahead and install the wing. Go ahead and pull those rubber bands up. Perfect. This is going to sit down right here. And we're going to take one rubber band. We're going to go over to the far side here. We'll take the other one and go to the other side. Now the seam of the wing, we want to go right down the center of the fuselage. The plane may look complete, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
But it's not going to fly. Why do you think that is?
Because of the balance.
It's not balanced. Everything needs to be balanced properly in order for it to fly. So if you took this out and flew it, it would just toss end over end. And the reason is the balance point on every design is different. But most of the time it's about 1/3 back from the wing. And on our kit, you're going to see two tiny little holes here and here. That's going to be the reference points on where you want it to balance. When we put our fingers here, we're going to want to add weight to the nose to the point where this balances and goes just a touch nose down. The way we're going to balance this is we're going to use this air dry clay and push it up in the front nose. Now every plane's going to be a little bit different, but in general, you're going to want to use a roll about this size. We're going to push a little bit in, we're going to balance it, and if we need to take a little bit out, we'll do so. If we need to add a little bit more, we'll do so. So let's go ahead and open up this front here. Let's go ahead and press this little ball in here. Now take your time to form it right. You're going to work that in.
And you don't want it to be too loose so it'll fall back.
That's right. We have extra barbecue skewer material. Once you're happy with that and it's gliding really well, we can actually press a barbecue skewer through one side and out the other, and it's going to adhere to that and hold in very well. But we don't want to do that until we have our balance point. That's why we didn't put a hole in it. Alright, let's go ahead and close that up. Let's give it a balance. It's a little bit nose heavy, isn't it? Let's go ahead and take a little bit out. So we'll scoop a little bit out with our finger. Be careful not to push too hard on the foam. We don't want to damage the plane, do we?
Mm-mm.
So I just took a little bit out. Go back to the same process again.
Perfect.
That looks fantastic. At this point, I'm not going to put the barbecue skewer in until we test glide it.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go ahead and fasten this down. Should kind of friction fit just like that. You can pull the wing forward just a little bit. We have our balance figured out, but we also need to adjust our elevator a little bit, and the only way we're going to really find that out is by gliding it. But I can tell you from experience, we want just a little bit of back pressure on our elevator. So we're going to go ahead and just lightly, where it's scored, just lightly lift up on both sides, here and here. We don't want to crack it completely loose, just a little bit, to give about a 1/16 of an inch deflection or a millimeter on both sides. Alright, the FT Sparrow Free Flight is now ready to test glide. One thing I want to encourage you is whenever you throw for the first time, you don't throw up into the air like this, and you don't throw down. The idea for a good launch is nice and level with a gentle push. The speed at which you throw it in is going to depict how the plane behaves. So try out with different throws, and once you find the perfect speed, go ahead and practice that over and over. You'll get longer and longer glides. If it pitches up or acts squirrely, go ahead and adjust these subtly. Once you get it perfect, put a little drop of hot glue on each side and lock it in, and you're all ready. So one thing to remember is the speed at which you throw it in, you're actually discovering the optimum glide slope of this glider. So at the same point you're building, you're also learning aviation and how lift and speed interact with each other. Now that was an absolute blast, and a special thank you to Adams for spending the day with us. I had a great time building with him and also flying with him.